First, the pledge to overhaul a nearly 3-decade-old moratorium on gene editing technology. The plan is to base our laws on similar legislation over the ditch and to have a regulator to oversee the technology. The Science Minister, Judith Collins, says current rules have led to some absurd consequences for developments such as a new ryegrass to curb methane emissions. Plant and Food Research Senior Scientist Dr Revel Drummond says New Zealand's strict rules put us behind other countries.
We are definitely having the problem of being locked in our glass houses or locked in our labs until the rules change. We will struggle along but fail to have the kind of impact that we all wish we could have to help improve the horticulture and agriculture of New Zealand.
Labour and the Greens are urging caution over the government's plan, but have not ruled out ultimately supporting the move.
The horticulture sector's welcomed changes to the recognised seasonal employer scheme, saying they'll go a long way to helping the industry achieve its goal of doubling returns by 2035. An extra 1,250 RSE workers will be allowed in for the next season, bringing the total to nearly 21,000 workers from the Pacific. Other changes include lifting the freeze on increasing workers' accommodation costs and paying all RSE workers 10% above the minimum wage only after 2 seasons' experience. It'll also be easier for RSE workers to move between employers and regions. The Amalgamated Workers Union says New Zealand should be ashamed about some of the changes, and they could result in further exploitation of the workers. While Horticulture New Zealand says it's committed to ensuring all RSE workers are well supported with pastoral care.
People are being asked to make their thoughts known on rural banking now that a parliamentary committee has finalised terms of reference for its inquiry. Federated Farmers pushed for the inquiry, saying farmers are not getting a fair deal from their banks. Several things will be under the microscope, including transparency on lending rates, access to banking services in rural areas, and the influences on lending rates to the primary sector. Scott Wishart is the Chief Executive of agricultural loan broker NZAB. He says the terms of reference are thorough and he's hopeful the inquiry will result in change.
The government has some big ambitions around increasing contribution from agriculture to GDP. We can't do that without more capital in the sector. So I hope that we see a recognition that some of the regulatory settings are running against that at the moment and that there are some subtle changes that we can make that will both attract new capital to the sector, give farmers the confidence to invest and grow their businesses, and ultimately, therefore, create an industry that meets all of the ambitions we have as a country and we can all be proud of.
People need to get their submissions into the Finance and Expenditure Committee by the 25th of September.
A Tairāwhiti environmental group is hailing an Environment Court decision, which it says will have repercussions for all forestry companies. Last month, Mana Taiao Tairāwhiti and the Gisborne District Council took action against China Forestry Group NZ and management company Wood Marketing Services. The court ruling says no significant discharges of woody debris or sediment is to leave the Kanuka forest in the upper Waimata River catchment. Mana Taiao Tairāwhiti spokesman Manu Kadi says finally the message is getting through about bad land management.
It sets a precedent. It shows that the court is taking these matters very seriously, and hopefully companies that thought they could get away with poor practices will realise that there's going to be no sympathy from the courts who are expecting them to clean up their mess before they leave a site.
Significant job losses are on the cards for the honey company Comvita, according to board chair Brett Hewlett. The firm is shaking up its management, talking with staff about job cuts and pausing any more investment into Mānuka forest planting. From September, David Banfield will resign from the top job of chief executive and become an advisor to the board, which will reduce in size. Mr Hewlett will step in at the helm, resigning as director and chair, and Bridget Coates will be the new chair. He says it's taking a more cautious approach now after extremely disappointing losses, when the company posted a $16.8 million net loss after tax for the 2024 financial year, just 2 weeks ago. Mr. Hewlett says its strategic reset reflects low sales in China and challenging times for the wider honey sector.
Last calendar year, we saw the first half, we grew by about 18% in key markets like mainland China. And in the second half of the calendar year, 2023, we declined 18%. So that's a very radical change for a business like ours. So to have to adjust to that and reignite the business to sort of be more attuned to that slowdown is a massive undertaking. And David recognised that to do that would require a lot longer commitment to the business.
North Canterbury farmers battling ongoing dry conditions are getting more support. $20,000 for the Farmers Adverse Events Trust and $18,000 worth of specialist vet visits. Farmers there have been struggling with dry conditions for nearly a year now. Many have reduced stock numbers, but feed levels remain really low, which isn't the best now farmers are in the swing of lambing and calving. Howard and sheep and beef farmer Dan Hodgin, who's also head of the Hurunui Adverse Events Committee, says things are getting bloody tough.
Feed's still very short, conditions are still very dry. Even at the end of winter, set stocking on the covers are well below what you'd hope to. People are still coming up with inventive solutions to try and get by, but it's obviously it's wearing thin on morale and people are starting to get a bit over it. We need a kind spring. We need plenty of rain through spring to get back because we're certainly still in severe deficit.
And finally, third-generation Rangitikei farmer Simon Nitsky has been named Maize Farmer of the Year at the Arable Industry Awards in Christchurch. He farms near Martin and supplies customers including Nestle, kibble for dairy and poultry farms, and also barley malt to Europe. The judges praised his cultivar selection, management of soil fertility and use of resources. Peter Hewson of Otaio, near Timaru, is Cereal Grower of the Year. Sid Worsfold of Mid-Canterbury was inducted into the newly formed Arable Hall of Fame.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.